The valley was a furnace of smoke, dust, and echoes. For nearly 6 hours, the SEAL team had fought their way through a labyrinth of jagged rocks and steep ridges, each one offering cover for enemy fire. The sun hung mercilessly above them, casting sharp shadows that hid rifles and sharpened every edge of danger. Their boots were caked with dirt, their bodies heavy with sweat, and yet they pushed forward with relentless precision. Each man knew his place. They moved like deers in a machine built for war, one advancing, another covering, another watching the sky. The air stank of cordite and blood, the lingering scent of a fight that had pushed them to their limits. The rattling bursts of gunfire had slowed, the enemy's positions collapsing one after another under the pressure of SEAL discipline and firepower. The ridges that had once erupted with muzzle flashes were now eerily quiet, blackened by grenades and scarred by the storm of bullets that had carved their silence. The commander stood near the front, a broad silhouette against the dusty haze. His uniform clung to his frame with sweat and dirt, but his eyes were sharp, scanning the battlefield with the calm of a man who had walked through fire too many times to count. He had lost men before. He had seen missions collapse under arrogance, overconfidence, and fatigue. That memory haunted him with every step, and yet here, in this valley, he felt the weight of victory pressing against his shoulders like a crown. "It's over," he thought, even before he said the words. His hand went to the radio on his chest, pressing the transmit button with the casual finality of a man who believed the fight was done. His voice, gravelly but commanding, cut through the static and drifted across the battlefield. "It's over." The words carried like a lifeline. Men who had been crouched behind boulders stood taller. Helmets tilted back, breaths exhaled. Even the wounded, slumped against rocks with blood-soaked bandages, allowed the corners of their mouths to twitch into something resembling relief. The medic nodded once, silently grateful, and went back to tying off a bandage with steadier hands. For the first time that day, the valley seemed survivable. The oppressive weight of combat lifted just slightly, like a storm cloud breaking apart to reveal slivers of sunlight. One SEAL leaned his head back, his chest heaving as he whispered, "Finally." Another gave a half-smile, tossing a spent magazine aside with a sense of finality. The clink of gear shifted from urgent to weary, the sound of soldiers alive. And yet, as the commander stood surveying the terrain, something gnawed at the edges of his mind. The silence stretched too far, like a taut wire ready to snap. The mountains, timeless and ancient, seemed to brood over them with a quiet malice. He knew these landscapes well. They never gave up their secrets easily. He glanced to his left, where a younger operator named Harris crouched low, scanning the ridge. Harris was new to the team, his first deployment with this unit, but his instincts were sharp. His rifle still pointed up, his knuckles tight. He hadn't relaxed like the others. The commander caught his eye for a moment and gave a slight nod, the unspoken exchange of two men who felt the weight of something unseen. Still, the commander's voice remained steady. He couldn't show doubt now, not when his men needed assurance more than anything. He had called it finished, and so it was. That was the creed of leadership. To hesitate now would be to unravel the fragile trust that held them all together. Around him, the scene unfolded with the familiarity of countless operations past. A soldier dug into his pack, pulling out an energy bar and ripping it open with his teeth. Another splashed water from his canteen over his face, the dirt streaking down his cheeks in muddy lines. The medic lit a flare near a wounded man, marking his position for the incoming helicopter. Somewhere in the distance, the faint thrum of rotor blades began to whisper across the sky. Reinforcements or extraction, already on the way. The commander closed his eyes for a brief second. His muscles relaxed, if only slightly. The battle, long and brutal, had seemed endless. Now, with the sound of the helicopter growing closer, he allowed himself to believe they had reached the end. But the valley had its own story to tell. The rocks above them held secrets, pockets of shadow that no drone had spotted, cracks wide enough to hide a man and his weapon. The enemy, though scattered and beaten, had not been erased. Among the dust and broken ridges, one set of eyes still lingered, calm and patient. A rifle, long and blackened by years of use, lay cradled against steady hands. Its owner had not fled with the others. He had stayed behind, silent as stone, watching, waiting for the perfect moment. Down below, the commander continued to issue orders with confidence. He instructed men to spread out, secure the perimeter, and prepare for extraction. His tone was measured, clipped, professional. But beneath it all, the unease in his gut tightened. He could feel Harris's eyes still fixed on the ridge, refusing to let down his guard. He almost told him to relax. Almost. Instead, the commander raised his gaze one more time to the jagged teeth of rock above them. He scanned for movement, for the glint of glass, for the faint curl of dust disturbed by a hidden shooter. Nothing, only silence. He let out a breath, steadying himself, and whispered under his breath, unheard by the others, "It's over." The words tasted different this time, less like triumph, more like a prayer. The valley said nothing back. The battle's aftermath clung to the air like smoke in an old tavern. Spent brass casings glittered faintly among the dust, half buried in the dirt, like coins scattered by some forgotten god of war. The valley no longer roared with machine gun fire. Instead, it breathed in long, eerie stretches of silence, broken only by the shuffle of boots and the low groans of the wounded. The SEAL team moved with the ritual of veterans who had seen too much war. Weapons were slung across shoulders, though always within reach. The medic worked swiftly, kneeling beside a man with a torn shoulder, the fabric of his uniform soaked deep crimson. A quick wrap of bandage, a firm press of gauze, a muttered reassurance. It was the dance of survival. Around them, others scavenged for ammo, collecting whatever magazines remained useful. A small pile of enemy rifles lay discarded, mute trophies of victory. The commander stood at the center of it all, his eyes darting across the ridgeline. He said nothing at first. His men had heard his declaration, "It's over," and they had believed him. To rescind it now would be weakness. Yet the silence that filled the valley gnawed at him like a blade pressed against the skin. A battlefield was never this quiet. Normally, even after the last shots were fired, there were sounds. The groan of wind over the rocks, a distant cry of birds returning once the chaos had ended, the soft rustle of life creeping back to claim what war had momentarily stolen. But here, nothing. Not even the wind stirred. It was as though the valley itself was holding its breath. Private Harris still hadn't lowered his weapon. From behind the jagged cover of a stone, his scope swept slowly across the ridge. His finger rested lightly against the trigger, disciplined but tense. He was younger than most on the team, yet his instincts had been right more than once already. He hadn't earned the commander's trust with years, but with moments of clarity under fire. And now, his clarity was focused entirely on the horizon. "Sir," Harris said quietly, just loud enough for the commander to hear. "It's two still up there." The commander turned his head slightly, acknowledging the words with a sharp nod, but offering no verbal reply. He didn't want to feed the unease spreading through the men. For now, they needed to believe the fight was finished, or exhaustion would consume them faster than bullets. Nearby, two operators shared a canteen, passing it between them like a communion chalice. One of them laughed under his breath, a shaky, fragile laugh that betrayed how close he had been to breaking. Another began humming a tune, low and rough, a habit from long patrols where silence pressed too heavily. Small sounds of humanity crept back into the valley, like sparks of fire in a dead hearth. The commander wanted to embrace that sense of closure. He wanted to let his shoulders drop, to exhale the weight pressing on his chest. Yet, every time his eyes drifted to the mountains above, he felt them watching him. The ridges loomed high, jagged shadows like rows of teeth, hiding secrets in their dark crevices. His memory dragged him back to other places, Kandahar, Fallujah, Helmand. He remembered the silence after firefights, the lull before an ambush, the sickening crack of a rifle when everyone thought the fight had ended. He remembered men dropping, one by one, because silence had seduced them into believing in peace too soon. Not again, he thought. Not here. Perimeter, he ordered suddenly, his voice hard. 2-man teams. Eyes up. Sweep those ridges. The men obeyed instantly, though some exchanged uneasy looks. Hadn't the commander just declared it over? Wasn't it time to rest, to regroup? But they moved nonetheless, instincts overriding doubt. The SEALs fanned out, rifles rising once more, scanning the horizon with the intensity of wolves who knew the forest wasn't yet theirs. Harris didn't move far. He stayed fixed on his vantage point, eyes glued to the ridgeline. He felt it before he saw it, the weight of a predator lurking just beyond sight. The valley wasn't empty. It was coiled, waiting to strike. The commander moved closer to him, crouching behind the same cover. "Talk to me," he muttered. Harris's cheek pressed against the stock of his rifle, his voice low. "There's something up there. I can't see it, but I feel it. They're not all gone." The commander studied him, searching for fear in his tone. But there was no fear, only certainty. He exhaled slowly, eyes returning to the ridge. The silence pressed tighter, heavy as a noose. Behind them, the medic raised a red flare, marking their position for the approaching Black Hawk. Its distant rotors chopped faintly through the air, a sound that should have brought comfort. Instead, it deepened the tension. Extraction was close, yes, but so was danger. The commander's radio crackled with static, followed by the pilot's voice. 2 mics out. Secure your zone. 2 minutes. That was all they needed. 2 minutes in a valley that felt like the eye of a storm. The commander glanced once more at his men. Some crouched low, rifles steady. Others tended to the wounded, eyes darting nervously toward the mountains. Every face bore the same exhaustion, the same desperate hope for this nightmare to end. He clenched his jaw, muttering a phrase he hadn't said aloud in years, one he reserved only for moments like this. "The dead don't stay quiet." Harris heard him and tightened his grip on the rifle. Then the wind shifted, sudden, sharp, carrying with it the faintest sound. Not a bird, not the rotor blades, not the men below. It was something different, something metallic. The commander froze, his ears straining. The silence had cracked, and in its fracture, something unseen stirred. He raised his hand sharply, signaling his men. Every SEAL froze, eyes snapping upward. The valley, once filled with whispers of relief, returned to breathless stillness. The commander's pulse thundered in his ears. The silence was not peace. It was a warning. The silence broke. It didn't break gently, like the rustle of leaves in wind, or the shuffle of boots on dirt. It tore apart like a steel blade splitting stone. The crack of the rifle was so sharp, so violent, it seemed to rip the air in half. One moment, the valley was heavy with stillness. The next, it was alive with death. The commander felt it before he heard it, a sudden rush of air past his temple, a scream of velocity that kissed his ear and shattered the rock behind him into a spray of shards. Stone fragments peppered his cheek, cutting tiny trails of blood across his skin. He ducked instinctively, his knees slamming into the dirt. His ears rang. His chest clenched. And in that instant, a truth detonated in his mind. It's not over. Sniper. Harris's voice cut the air like lightning. He had been waiting for this, braced for it. His rifle snapped upward, eyes glued to the ridgeline, as if he had seen the ghost himself. Chaos erupted. The fragile calm that had hovered over the men shattered in a single heartbeat. Operators scrambled for cover, boots grinding against gravel, curses ripping from their throats. A wounded man, half-bandaged, cried out as he was dragged behind a boulder by two teammates. The medic threw himself flat, shielding his patient with his own body. Another shot cracked. This one hit a helmet, sending the SEAL spinning sideways. He slammed into the dirt, groaning, alive by nothing more than luck and Kevlar. The team's collective breath caught. For a split second, everyone thought he was dead. The commander pressed his back to the rock, forcing his breath to steady. His eyes swept the ridgeline, but there was nothing. No flash, no movement, no figure silhouetted against the sky. Just stone, shadow, and silence. But the shooter was there. He was waiting, watching. Professional, the commander thought grimly. This isn't desperation. This is discipline. He had seen it before, in Ramadi, in Helmand, in nameless valleys carved by centuries of blood. The ghost shooters. The ones who didn't fire blindly, didn't panic, didn't waste bullets. They fired with the patience of predators. Every round had purpose. Every shot carried intent. And intent meant death. Eyes up. The commander barked. His voice cut through the panic, grounding his men in the storm. He's got range and elevation. Keep low, sweep high. The team responded instantly, training overriding fear. Rifles lifted toward the ridges, scanning every crevice, every crack where a barrel could hide. Spotters deployed scopes, their breathing controlled, their hands steady despite the adrenaline hammering in their veins. Still, the sniper gave them nothing. Only silence. The commander's mind raced. The first shot had been aimed at him. That wasn't random. That was deliberate. A message. The ghost wanted the commander's blood, and nearly had it. Movement, 2 o'clock. One SEAL shouted, firing a quick burst into the rocks. The round sparked against stone, kicking up dust. But when the air cleared, there was nothing. No body, no rifle. Just empty ridgeline. Negative contact, the spotter muttered. His voice was flat, tense. The sniper had vanished. The commander ground his teeth. He hated ghosts. Hated the ones who could kill and disappear like smoke. His jaw tightened as he recalled the weight of his earlier words. It's over. He had let himself believe it. He had let his men believe it. And now, that mistake could kill them all. Keep him guessing. He ordered. Suppress the ridges. Don't give him time. The valley thundered back to life. SEAL rifles barked, cutting arcs of lead into the rocks. Grenades thumped, shaking loose clouds of dust from the cliffs. The ridgeline became a storm of fire and noise. But the ghost rifle didn't answer. It waited. Somewhere above them, hidden in the jagged mouth of the mountain, the sniper lay calm. His finger rested lightly on the trigger, his breathing steady. He was no ordinary soldier. His patience was endless, his discipline absolute. He had waited hours for this moment, and he would wait longer still. The commander knew it. He could feel it, the intelligence behind the scope, the mind that hunted them. He pressed the radio to his lips, voice low, controlled. Black Hawk, hold approach. We've got active fire. Circle until we clear the ridge. The pilot's reply came fast, sharp with tension. Copy, holding pattern. 5 mics on station. 5 minutes. The commander clenched his fist. 5 minutes in this valley could cost them lives. Another shot cracked. This time, the bullet struck inches from Harris's position, carving a scar into the rock. Harris flinched, then steadied, pressing tighter to his rifle. He whispered into his combs, "He's playing with us. He could have taken me." The words sent a chill through the squad. The sniper wasn't missing. He was choosing. The commander's blood ran cold. He had faced many enemies, but the worst were always the ones who hunted like wolves. This ghost rifle wasn't trying to kill them all at once. He was breaking them, winding them tight, making them bleed fear with every second they breathed. The men shifted uneasily, their nerves strung thin. Every shadow in the rocks seemed alive. Every glint of light felt like death staring back. Fingers twitched against triggers, hearts hammered in rib cages. The commander knew he had to act fast. If the ghost controlled their fear, he controlled the battlefield. "Harris," he said quietly, crouching beside the younger operator. "Talk me through it. What do you see?" Harris's eyes stayed glued to his scope. Sweat traced down his temple, but his voice was steady. "Nothing yet. But he's there. He's smart. He fires, then he relocates. He's staying ahead of our angles. Pattern?" the commander asked. Harris hesitated, scanning. "Not random. He's testing us. Shots near you, then me. He's feeling out the perimeter, forcing us to show positions. He's hunting you, sir." The commander's jaw clenched. He had suspected it, but hearing it aloud solidified the truth. The ghost wanted the commander. "Well," the commander growled, chambering a fresh round, "he's going to have to earn it." He signaled his men with a sharp wave of his hand. Suppressive fire began again, hammering the ridge, driving dust into the sky. Under that cover, two operators began crawling forward, low and silent, angling for a flank. The commander knew the risk. He was sending them into the lion's den. But it had to be done. Because one truth had returned with that ghost shot, a truth as old as war itself. It was not over. It was only just beginning. The valley exploded into chaos. Men who had been seconds away from believing in safety now scrambled for their lives. Boots pounded against stone, the metallic rattle of gear clashing with the desperate shouts of soldiers diving behind cover. Dust rose in plumes, choking the air and blurring the lines between shadow and substance. The sniper fired again. A sharp, thunderous crack, and another bullet slammed into the dirt, inches from an operator's hand. The man yanked it back, cursing under his breath, as shards of rock caught across his knuckles. He pressed himself flat against the earth, his breath ragged, the reality of death clawing at his spine. The commander barked orders, his voice cutting through the storm. "Cover! Find hard cover now! Eyes up! Sweep the ridges!" But the sniper was already ahead of them. His shots came slow, deliberate, not the wild spray of desperation, but the calm rhythm of a predator savoring the hunt. He wasn't trying to wipe them all out in a flurry. He was choosing his targets, shaping the battlefield with every round. One soldier leaned too far from cover, trying to reposition. The sniper's bullet caught the edge of his helmet, ricocheting off with a deafening crack. The force spun him sideways, slamming him into the ground. His teammates dragged him back, shouting, their hearts slamming with relief when they saw he was still breathing. "He's not missing," Harris muttered from behind his scope, sweat beading down his forehead. "He's measuring us." The words sank into the commander like cold steel. He knew Harris was right. The ghost rifle wasn't firing to kill randomly. He was firing to herd them, to remind them who owned the high ground. The commander crouched low behind a jagged boulder, feeling the sting of grit on his skin. He scanned the ridges through narrowed eyes, but all he saw was stone, dust, and silence. No silhouette. No muzzle flash. The sniper was invisible. This is his valley now, The commander thought bitterly. He's turned the ground into a cage. Another shot rang out. Sparks flared as the round struck dangerously close to the medic, who was crouched over a wounded man. Without hesitation, the medic threw his own body over the casualty, shielding him with nothing more than resolve. Keep him alive. The medic shouted to himself as much as to the team. The commander knew what was happening. Panic was spreading. His men were seasoned, disciplined, trained for chaos, but even the toughest operators weren't immune to the psychological warfare of a ghost sniper. One by one, doubt crept into their eyes. The sense of victory had vanished, replaced by the chilling awareness that they were prey. He had to cut it off. Now, listen up. His voice thundered across the comms, sharp, commanding, relentless. You are not prey. This is just another shooter, and shooters bleed like anyone else. We find him, we finish him, and we get out alive. You hear me? Yes, sir. Voices came back, some steady, others strained. The commander forced strength into his tone. He knew leadership wasn't about hiding fear. It was about transforming it. His men had to believe they could win, even if doubt gnawed at his own chest. Still crouched beside Harris, he leaned close. Where's his nest? Harris scanned, his eye glued to the scope, every muscle tense. He's moving after every shot. Keeps shifting between rocks. He's smart. Knows how to blend in. But he's using the same angles, which means he'll slip, the commander muttered. Nobody's invisible forever. Around them, the team adjusted. Suppressive fire rattled against the ridges in controlled bursts. Not wild panic anymore, but measured discipline. Smoke and dust filled the air, curling upward to obscure the sniper's view. Operators repositioned under the cover of fire, low and fast, shifting angles to prevent being corralled. Yet still, the sniper's patience endured. He waited until the fire slackened, then struck again, a single shot, slicing clean through the air. It slammed into the rock inches above another operator's head, spraying debris across his helmet. The man froze, paralyzed by how close death had come. The commander's voice cut through again. Keep moving. Don't freeze. Don't let him pin you. The operator snapped back to motion, diving behind cover, his breath shuddering but his hands steady on his weapon. The sniper was trying to break them with fear. The commander wouldn't let him. He tapped Harris on the shoulder. We flush him. You track him. No hesitation. Harris nodded, his jaw clenched, his finger tightening against his trigger. The commander switched channels, speaking directly to his squad. Team Bravo, lay down cover fire, right ridge. Team Charlie, push left under smoke. Harris has eyes. We're going to choke him out. Copy that, came the firm replies. The valley roared again. Smoke grenades hissed, clouds billowing upward and drifting across the rocks. Automatic fire hammered the ridges, showering them with sparks. The SEALs moved like shadows, slipping from one cover to the next under the storm. The ghost rifle stayed silent. The commander's heart pounded. Was the sniper gone? Relocated? Waiting for the perfect shot? Seconds stretched like hours. Then, crack. The shot pierced the smoke, clean and merciless. It struck the edge of a boulder near the advancing unit, sending shards flying. The men ducked, shouting, but no one fell. Harris's voice came over comms, urgent but calm. I've got a line. He's close to the northeast ridge. Between those split rocks, the commander followed his gaze. Dust and haze blurred the cliffs, but for a fraction of a second, he thought he saw it. A glint of glass, the faint outline of a barrel withdrawing into shadow. There, Harris whispered, his voice almost reverent. The ghost is watching us. The commander's blood chilled, then hardened into steel. He raised his rifle, steady hands gripping the weapon. His voice came across the comms like iron. All units, eyes on Northeast Ridge. Suppress and flank. We end this now. The valley thundered to life once more. Bullets shredded rock. Smoke billowed thicker. The air filled with the storm of war. But the ghost? The ghost waited, patient as stone, steady as death itself. And in that patience, the commander realized the truth. They were no longer fighting men. They were fighting a shadow, a legend carved into the silence of the valley. And shadows did not panic. Shadows endured. The valley had shifted. What minutes ago had been a battleground of fire and smoke was now transformed into a chessboard. Every movement, every sound, every shadow mattered. The SEAL team was no longer simply fighting. They were hunting and being hunted. The commander crouched low, pressing his back against cold stone, radio clipped close to his lips. His voice was sharp, controlled, clipped into fragments designed to keep fear at bay. Bravo, hold left flank. Charlie, set overwatch. Harris, stay on him. Harris's eyes never left his scope. He was still fixed on the ridge, his finger poised against the trigger. He spoke in a low voice, almost a growl. He's there. He hasn't moved far. Knows how to disappear. But he's close. Above them, a low whine filled the air as a small drone lifted skyward. Its rotors buzzed faintly, blending with the whirling of dust in the valley. Controlled from a tablet clutched in an operator's hands, its tiny camera swept the ridgeline, feeding images back in real time. The commander glanced at the screen. Jagged rocks. Split boulders. Pockets of shadow. Nothing that screamed sniper. And yet, keep sweeping, he ordered. The drone climbed higher, circling wide. The camera caught faint glints, shards of sunlight bouncing off stone. But nothing steady, nothing that betrayed glass or steel. The sniper knew how to hide, even from the eye in the sky. Another shot cracked. The bullet screamed across the valley, slamming into the dirt inches from a crawling SEAL. Dust burst upward as the man flattened against the ground, teeth clenched. Suppress! The commander barked. Rifles roared in response, shredding the rocks where the shot had come from. Dust and fragments rained from the ridge. But when the firing stopped, the ridge was empty once more. He relocates every time, Harris said, his voice steady but tight. He fires, then shifts. He's not panicking. He's planned this. The commander's jaw clenched. He knew Harris was right. This ghost wasn't improvising. He was orchestrating. Every shot was part of a larger design. Then we break the design, the commander muttered. He keyed his radio. Drone 2 up. Overlap scans. Force him into the open. A second drone buzzed upward, joining the first. Their cameras swept in overlapping arcs, feeding imagery into the operator's tablets. Still nothing. Only ridges, rocks, and silence. The commander's pulse thudded in his ears. He had been here before, in other valleys, in other wars. He knew this game. The sniper wanted him to grow impatient, to waste ammo, to expose himself. The ghost wasn't just a rifle. He was a mind. Sir, Harris murmured, permission to shift position. If I angle from the south, I can cover his escape route. The commander studied him. Harris was young, but he was steady. Calm under fire. His instincts had been sharp since the beginning. Still, moving meant risk, exposing himself to the ghost's eye. The commander's voice was firm. Granted, but slow. Crawl like your life depends on it, because it does. Harris gave a sharp nod, then slid onto his belly, rifle cradled tight. Inch by inch, he crawled forward, his movements blending into the dust. His helmet scraped faintly against stone, his boots dragging like whispers. Every inch was agony, every second an invitation for the ghost to strike. The commander watched, heart clenched, ready to call it off. But the sniper stayed silent. Harris reached a new position behind a jagged outcrop, sighting the ridge from a fresh angle. He pressed his cheek against the stock, his breath controlled, his eye sharp. "I've got shadows," he murmured. "North Ridge. Between the splits. Can't confirm, but—" His voice trailed off, tense with certainty. The commander keyed the radio. "All units, tighten on Harris's mark. Suppression fire in 3, 2, 1. Engage." The valley roared again. Dozens of rounds ripped into the ridge Harris had marked. Grenades followed, shaking the rocks loose. Dust and smoke filled the sky, choking the sniper's vision. Then, for the first time, they heard it. A faint metallic ping, followed by a brief, almost imperceptible shimmer of movement. "There!" Harris shouted, his finger twitching against the trigger. He fired, his round slamming into the ridge. Stone splintered, dust burst outward. But when the air cleared, nothing. The ghost was gone. The commander cursed under his breath. The sniper had slipped again, vanishing like smoke. He wasn't rattled. He wasn't desperate. He was deliberate. The men shifted nervously, their eyes scanning every direction. One muttered under his breath, "This bastard's not human." The commander cut him off with a glare. "He's human. Don't turn him into a ghost. Ghosts don't bleed." "He does." Still, in his own chest, the commander felt the gnaw of doubt. This enemy wasn't like the others. He wasn't part of the broken militia they'd just crushed. He was something else, trained, disciplined, dangerous. Another shot cracked. This one struck closer than any before. The commander felt the bullets whisper past his shoulder. Hot as fire, close enough to steal the breath from his lungs. He froze, heart hammering. He knew then, the ghost wasn't just testing them. He was targeting him. The commander swallowed hard, his voice steady but low. "He wants me." Harris's reply was immediate, fierce. "Then we make him pay for it." The hunt continued. The shot that skimmed past the commander's shoulder had done more than chipstone. It had cracked open something inside him. For a moment, crouched low behind the jagged boulder, he felt the past wash over him in a torrent. The valley, the rocks, the silence between shots, it all blended with older battlefields. Different countries, different enemies, but the same invisible hand of death pressing against his skin. He clenched his fists, forcing himself back into the present. His men needed him. Fear was poison, and if he drank it, they would too. But the ghost had stirred something he thought he buried long ago. Harris's voice crackled through the combs. "Sir, he's stalking you. That last shot wasn't chance." "I know," the commander answered, voice steady but low. "He's pulling me into his game." Another operator cut in. "Sir, maybe you should—" "Don't say it," the commander snapped. His tone was sharp, slicing the air. "If he wants me, he's not getting me for free." We turned the hunt around. "He doesn't pull strings here, I do." But the silence after his words felt heavy, as though even the men knew how close the line was between control and chaos. The commander pressed his back against the rock, inhaling the dust-filled air. He closed his eyes for a heartbeat, letting memories spill in. Afghanistan, 10 years earlier. Another valley, another sniper. A young corporal under his command, barely 20, had frozen when the first shot came. The commander had shouted, pulled, pushed him toward cover. But the boy hadn't moved fast enough. The crack of a rifle, the spray of blood, the lifeless eyes staring up at him. The commander remembered holding the boy's tags in his palm that night, his throat burning with guilt. He'd told himself then that he would never lose another man to hesitation. Never again let a sniper play God over his unit. And now here he was, a decade older, facing another ghost in the rocks, his men trembling under the same shadow. "Focus," he muttered to himself, forcing the memory back. The past was a weight he couldn't afford. Not now. He keyed the radio again. "Bravo, shift east. Charlie, hold tight. Harris, you and I are going to flush him. He wants me. Fine. Let's give him a reason to step into the open." The men acknowledged, voices clipped and tight. They trusted him, even if the tension in their tones betrayed their fear. The commander crawled to Harris's side, his movements low and deliberate. Dust coated his uniform, sweat streaked his face, but his eyes were steel. Harris glanced at him, the young sniper's jaw clenched, his knuckles white around the rifle. "You good?" the commander asked quietly. Harris nodded once. "Better than he thinks." The commander almost smiled. The kid had fire. He'd seen Harris grow from raw recruit to sharpshooter, a soldier who didn't flinch in the storm. And yet, he worried. Ghosts didn't care about fire. They smothered it. The commander scanned the ridge again. Nothing. Only stillness. He spoke softly into the comms. "We push a false move. Draw him out. He's waiting for me to expose. Let's give him bait." "Bait?" Harris frowned. The commander nodded. "A decoy. If he's locked on me, we use that. But it won't be me he's aiming at." Minutes later, an operator carefully slid his pack out from cover, propping it against a rock. A helmet followed, angled just high enough to mimic the commander's silhouette. From a distance, in the haze and dust, it would look like a man peering out. The team held its breath. Silence. The ghost didn't bite. The commander exhaled slowly. Too smart for that. Then, suddenly, the crack of a rifle. But the bullet didn't strike the decoy. It slammed into the dirt a meter from Harris's rifle, spraying his face with stone and grit. Harris flinched, ducking low. "He's on me." The commander's stomach dropped. The ghost wasn't just after him anymore. He'd shifted focus, studying the unit, probing their strengths. The commander's voice cut through the comms. "Pull back, Harris. Don't give him a clean line." Harris obeyed, sliding behind deeper cover. His breathing was ragged now, his hands trembling slightly on the rifle. The commander reached over, gripping his shoulder. "Listen to me," he said firmly. "He wants your fear. Don't give it. You breathe, you stay sharp, and you make him regret picking you." Harris locked eyes with him, nodding. The tremor in his hands stilled. Another shot rang out, striking close to their flank. The team shouted, diving lower. The ghost was shifting angles again, circling them like a wolf. The commander pressed his radio. "Drone feed, anything?" "Negative," came the reply. "We see dust, heat shimmer, but no body. He's in the rocks." The commander's teeth ground together. The man wasn't just hidden. He was blending into the earth itself. Another memory hit him. This time Iraq. Another sniper, another mission. He'd lost a brother in arms then, not to a bullet, but to guilt. The sniper had pinned them for hours, until they finally broke free. But his friend, the squad sergeant, had never forgiven himself for the men lost. A year later, he'd taken his own life. The commander shook his head hard, as if to cast the memory out. But the lesson clung like smoke. Snipers don't just kill bodies. They kill spirits. They make men doubt themselves. And that's what this ghost was doing now. The commander stood slowly, shifting behind the rock, making himself move despite every instinct screaming stay down. He had to show his men strength, even if it meant drawing the sniper's eye. "Sir, no," one of the operators hissed. But the commander ignored him. He leaned just enough to expose a sliver of his helmet, his weapon raised, his eyes scanning. The silence thickened. Every second was a lifetime. Then, the crack. The bullet screamed past, shaving rock inches from his head. The commander ducked low, heart hammering but face steady. He keyed the comms. He's northeast ridge again. He's watching me. Harris's voice came sharp. I've got him. Just a glint between the shadows. Give me 2 seconds. Take the shot if you see it, the commander ordered. Harris adjusted, slow and precise, his finger tightening. He saw it, a faint outline, the curve of a rifle, the glimmer of glass. He steadied, exhaled, but before he fired, the ghost vanished again. Harris cursed, slamming his fist against the rock. He knew. He knew I was on him. The commander's stomach twisted. This wasn't just a sniper. This was a hunter who felt their every move, who anticipated before they acted. And beneath the weight of the valley, with his men crouched low, the commander finally admitted to himself what he hadn't dared before. He was no longer certain they would all make it out alive. The valley had gone quiet again, unnervingly quiet. The SEAL team huddled low, their breaths shallow, weapons tight against their chests. The ghost rifle had gone silent for almost 5 minutes, an eternity in combat. No one moved, no one dared whisper, as though the rocks themselves were listening. The commander crouched with Harris, his eyes fixed on the northeast ridge. He didn't trust the silence. Silence was a trap. Silence meant the predator was circling. He's waiting, Harris murmured, voice tight but steady. His cheek pressed against the stock of his rifle, eye glued to the scope. He knows we're watching. He knows I'm watching. The commander studied the young sniper. Harris's face was streaked with dust and sweat, his hands steady now, the tremor gone. His eyes were sharp, burning with focus. You ready for this? The commander asked. Harris nodded. Been waiting my whole life for it. The commander gave a grim smile. He admired Harris's resolve, but he knew the danger. This wasn't a fair duel. This wasn't 2 men meeting as equals. The ghost had the high ground, the shadows, the patience of stone. Harris had only his training, his nerve, and his will. The silence stretched. Then a crack. The bullet screamed into the valley, slamming against stone meters from Bravo team. Men ducked, cursing, hearts pounding. Dust showered down in a choking wave. Suppress. The commander barked. Rifles roared in response, chewing up the ridge with hot metal. But the ghost had already shifted, fading back into the rocks. Harris's voice was sharp. He's testing lines again. He's mapping us. He knows exactly how far we'll reach. The commander cursed under his breath. The ghost wasn't shooting to kill every time. He was drawing them like pieces on a board, forcing them to reveal their patterns. But Harris wasn't just reacting anymore. He was watching the hunter as much as he was being hunted. He's favoring the shadow's north ridge, Harris whispered, adjusting his angle. Keeps firing, then shifting back 2 meters. He's disciplined, but not perfect. Everyone slips. The commander gave a single nod. Then we make him slip. He keyed the comms. All units hold fire. Absolute silence. No movement unless I say. We're going to starve him of signals. The team froze, weapons poised but still. Dust hung in the air, the valley eerily quiet once more. For long minutes, there was nothing. No shots, no movement. Just the buzz of flies and the rasp of lungs struggling in the heat. Then it came, the faintest shimmer. Harris saw it through his scope, not a full silhouette, not even a rifle barrel, just a flicker of light, glass catching the sun for less than a second. I've got him, Harris whispered, voice tight with excitement. Northeast ridge, shadow line. 2 degrees left of the split boulder. He doesn't know I see him. The commander's heart slammed. This was it. The moment. Take the shot, he said. Harris exhaled slowly, his finger tightening on the trigger. He steadied, locking out everything, the dust, the sweat, the pounding in his chest. The world shrank to the faint outline in his scope. He squeezed. The rifle cracked, the shot slicing through the valley, echoing off the stone. Dust burst from the ridge, shards of rock spraying outward. Silence, then movement. A figure shifted, barely visible, rolling deeper into shadow. Harris's shot had struck close enough to make the ghost move. I hit his nest. Harris shouted, adrenaline surging. He's moving. He's not untouchable. The commander felt a jolt of fierce hope, but he crushed it quickly. A wounded predator was more dangerous than ever. Stay sharp, he barked. He's angry now. He'll strike back hard. As if on cue, the ghost fired. The round screamed past Harris, close enough to tear fabric from his shoulder. The young sniper ducked, teeth gritted, but he didn't flinch. He knows it's me now, Harris growled. It's not just you he wants anymore. He's locked on me. The commander stared at him, pride and fear warring inside. Then you finish what you started. The duel began in earnest. For the next 10 minutes, the valley became a deadly conversation between 2 rifles. Harris would spot a flicker, fire, and the ghost would answer with a shot that whistled inches from his head. Back and forth, predator against predator, patience against patience. The SEAL team watched in silence, their own rifles trained on the ridge but unused. This wasn't their fight now. It was Harris's. The commander crouched beside him, watching every move. He could see the toll it was taking, the sweat pouring, the tightness in Harris's jaw, the fatigue in his eyes. But he could also see the fire, the refusal to yield. Another crack. Another near miss. Harris adjusted, recalibrated, sighted again. I've got him, he whispered. Closer this time. He's slipping. He thinks I'm rattled, but I'm not. He steadied, exhaled, squeezed. The shot tore through the ridge, rock exploding in a cloud of dust. For a heartbeat, silence. Then a cry. Faint, almost lost in the wind, but real. Human. The commander's eyes widened. The ghost had bled. Harris's face lit with fierce triumph. I hit him. I hit him. But the commander's instincts screamed. He grabbed Harris's shoulder, pulling him down. Don't celebrate. He's not finished. As if the ghost had been waiting for that very second, a shot roared from deeper in the ridge. The bullet slammed into the rock inches from where Harris's head had been. Shards cut his cheek, blood streaking down, but he was alive only because the commander had pulled him low. Harris panted, stunned. He baited me. He wanted me to think I had him. The commander's jaw tightened. The duel was no longer just about precision. It was about psychology. And the ghost was still winning that war. The SEAL team shifted anxiously, the air heavy with fear and hope intertwined. Harris wiped the blood from his cheek, his eyes narrowing with renewed determination. He's bleeding, Harris said coldly. Somewhere up there, he's bleeding. And I'm not stopping until I finish it. The commander studied him for a long moment. He saw in Harris the same fire he'd once carried in his own youth, the same refusal to yield. He also saw the danger of it, the obsession, the hunger that could blind a man. But there was no stopping it now. The duel had begun, and only one of them would leave the ridge alive. The commander placed a steady hand on Harris's shoulder. Then end it. But remember, ghosts die when you stop believing in them. Make him human. Harris nodded, lowering his eye back to the scope, the valley narrowing once again into a line of stone, shadow, and blood. And somewhere in the rocks above, The ghost rifle waited, patient as ever, bleeding but unbroken. The duel in the dust had only just begun. The valley hung in tense stillness. Dust rose in thin wisps, twisted by faint wind, carrying the scent of spent gunpowder and sweat. Shadows clung to the jagged ridges, hiding the ghost sniper who had haunted them for hours. The SEAL team lay scattered among rocks, crouched low, rifles poised, hearts still hammering from every near miss. Harris pressed his eye to the scope, patience coiling him like a spring. Every instinct screamed at him to move, fire, breathe, but he didn't. He had tracked the ghost through patterns, mapped every flicker of shadow, every angle of fire. He knew the hunter now. "Sir," Harris whispered, voice tight, almost reverent. "I can get a clean shot. Northeast ridge." He's exposed for 2 seconds, then he disappears again. The commander's pulse roared in his ears. He studied Harris's face, the resolve etched in his features. "You've got this," he said. "One shot. Make it count." Harris nodded, jaw tight, fingers steady. Every SEAL in the valley held their breath. Time had stretched thin, each heartbeat louder than gunfire. The wind shifted slightly. A faint shimmer, a glint of the sniper's scope reflecting the sun. Harris saw it. He exhaled slowly, aligning his crosshairs. The ghost had moved into a narrow pocket between boulders, partially exposed. A single miscalculation could kill him. A single hesitation could waste the opportunity. Harris squeezed the trigger. The rifle cracked. The bullet tore through the valley, a streak of death. Dust and rock exploded where it struck, and for a heartbeat, nothing moved. Then the ghost faltered. A cry echoed, sharp and human, mingled with a grunt. The figure in the rocks stumbled, blood staining his camo, rifle clattering against stone. Harris's chest heaved with controlled excitement. "He's down," he shouted, relief and adrenaline mixing in his voice. The commander exhaled slowly, letting tension leave his body in a wave. The ghost had bled. The hunter had become prey. But the victory was tempered. The valley still smelled of fear and iron. The SEALs began to advance cautiously, clearing rocks, sweeping every shadow. The ghost was wounded, but not defeated. Every step was careful, methodical, a predator forced into retreat. From a higher ridge, the commander signaled the team. "Advance. Keep him contained. No surprises. Cover each other." The SEALs moved, boots crunching on gravel, rifles trained. Harris followed, scope never leaving the ghost. Each inch of approach was measured, each rock checked. The ghost paused, sliding back behind a large boulder, bleeding but steady. He raised his rifle, ready to fire, but his movements were slower, less precise. Harris adjusted, tracking him with unwavering focus. The commander watched every motion, every flicker of tension. He knew the battle wasn't just physical, it was psychological. The ghost was proud, disciplined, a master of patience. To finish him, Harris had to outthink him, anticipate the instinct to counterstrike. Harris exhaled again, sighting carefully. He waited for the precise moment when the ghost would peek for a shot. The ghost thought he controlled the tempo, but Harris was patient. He had learned from the hours of cat and mouse, the near misses, the relentless psychological pressure. Then the ghost moved. A subtle shift, trying to find a new angle, to regain the upper hand. Harris's crosshairs tracked instantly. His finger squeezed. The shot rang out. The ghost collapsed, his body sliding against the rock, rifle clattering to the ground. Silence fell, not the tense silence of waiting, but the deep, relieved silence of victory. The shadow that had haunted the valley for hours was finally human again. The commander exhaled fully, letting the adrenaline drain. He moved forward carefully, reaching the ghost, confirming he was incapacitated but alive. Medical attention would come, but for now, the threat had ended. Harris's hands shook slightly, still gripping his rifle, but his eyes were alive with relief and triumph. The commander clapped him on the shoulder, a rare gesture of pride. "You did it. You ended it." The SEALs began to regroup, tending to wounds, checking ammo, and scanning the ridges for any remaining danger. The valley that had once been a labyrinth of death slowly became a place of cautious calm. The commander stood on a ridge, looking out over the valley, the sun lowering in the sky. Shadows stretched long, echoing the scars of the battle. He thought of every near miss, every tactical decision, every fear suppressed for the sake of his men. The cost had been high, but they had survived. Harris approached, wiping blood from his cheek, helmet still smeared with dust. "Sir," he said quietly, voice thick with exhaustion. "He's still breathing. He's human." "Just like you said." The commander nodded. "Yes, that's all he ever was, human. Now he knows what happens when you push too far." "So do we." The men began moving toward the extraction point, helicopters approaching, their rotors slicing the air with a roar that felt like salvation. Each step was heavy with fatigue, but light with relief. Every soldier carried the memory of the ghost, the fear, the intensity, but also the victory, hard-earned, absolute, undeniable. The commander stayed a moment longer, scanning the ridges one final time. The valley was quiet now, truly quiet. Dust settled. Shadows softened. But the lessons lingered, the patience of the ghost, the precision, the danger that had nearly claimed them all. He thought of the past battles, the ghosts he had faced before, and realized that in war, survival was never just about firepower or training. It was about presence of mind, courage under pressure, and the ability to confront fear without letting it control you. Harris joined him, shoulder brushing his. "Sir, what now?" The commander let the question hang, then answered simply, "We go home. We live to fight another day. And we remember." The team boarded the helicopters, the valley shrinking beneath them. The ghost sniper, now under control and medicated, was escorted carefully. The battle was over, but the story would remain, a lesson in patience, in courage, in the quiet terror of being hunted. As the helicopters lifted, the commander looked back at the valley, a place of shadow and death, and whispered to himself, "It's over, but we will never forget." Above, the sun dipped behind the jagged peaks, casting the valley in golden light. Dust hung in the air like memory. Shadows receded. And for the first time in hours, the SEAL team exhaled together, survivors of a battle that would haunt and inspire them forever. The valley was silent. The ghost was gone. And the men, weary, scarred, but alive, carried the story with them.